We're back with a bonus conversation you'll only see here on CBS News, New York. So, Commissioner, you were a dreamer. You came here at the age of 5 with your mom. I'm wondering, what was that like for you?
Well, it was quite difficult, but we got through it. And really, it was because of New York City. I've met a lot of people like myself, actually other asylum seekers from Venezuela who came in the last several decades, who say something that I can empathize with. They say New York City saved them.
Did New York City save you?
It certainly feels like it did, because I don't think anywhere else I would have prospered the way I did. I was able to eventually become the executive director of a nonprofit organization and give back to the city by supporting us immigrant communities here. And now, as a commissioner, be able to do, you know, pay back what, frankly, all that the city has given me.
But when you came here, you didn't speak English, right?
I did not speak English. My parents didn't speak English. And again, it was a very different city. And I can tell you now, the city was not doing as much for immigrant communities.
But how was it for you to enter a New York City school system when you didn't speak the language?
Well, it's obviously quite a change from you know, back in our home countries, and it's an adjustment. But you know, a lot of other children were in the same situation. You know, eventually I became friends with you know, people, and my family became friends with other families that were going through the same situation. And this is what we want to do with the communities that have arrived. There are a number of survival skills that you need to develop once you're here.
Like what? Tell us the survival skills.
Whether finding housing on your own, work, and other resources. And look, immigrants are survivalists or survivors, and they'll do everything possible to prosper here. And I certainly learned that from my parents and from the community that I grew up in. Despite not having resources that perhaps citizens had, we were able to make it through. And again, this city is for me, is just the model for others to follow, and others do. I often am contacted by other cities who want to replicate our municipal ID program, for instance, or they want to learn how we are welcoming newly arrived immigrants. And I'm just really proud to be able to do this work and share that experience.
How have things changed now since when you came here, and the hurdles you faced? Are the hurdles different that the latest crop of asylum seekers are facing?
Well, you know, certainly the national politics, you know, it's unfortunate because our immigration system is so broken. A lot of people are still in limbo. You know, their status, they don't know what to expect in the future. So a lot of the asylum seekers now are in the same situation. And it's just continuing to get worse. And now you see governors taking advantage of the situation, and other people, even locally, taking advantage of the situation. The longer we take to fix our broken immigration system, I think the worse off we are.
But I guess the question in my mind is this: in a lot of the times, a lot of the places that the city has looked at to locate either permanent shelter or temporary shelter, there's been resistance from the community. I wonder if this sends a bad message to the people who are coming in that they're not welcome, and how, as the commissioner, do you overcome that?
So much of my work is to build trust within the various immigrant communities. Now, there's over 100 immigrant ethnic enclaves in New York City. There's no place like it in the world. And some are more insular than others. So my work is to uplift them, connect with them, be the bridge between city government and immigrants. And it becomes difficult when, you know, they hear that certain electeds or certain people are saying that immigrants are not welcome here, or they are taking away from us. And it's hard to do our job when immigrants are afraid to come forward if they're perhaps victims of crimes, for instance, or they just arrived and they don't know how to register their child to school. So that trust is really important to maintain for us. And again, when people feel targeted, they're more likely to stay in the shadows and not come forward.
See, one of the things that if you talk to people who are unhappy about the influx of immigrants, what they say is that they think that they're being treated better than the people who are being put into homeless shelters who are homeless, who are actually citizens of New York City and of the United States. Do you want to answer that?
So, we are in a fast-moving crisis here. So we've needed to find every location possible, including hotel spaces. It was not our intention to, turn all these hotels into emergency shelters, and I think that's where a lot of this criticism comes from. But families who are experiencing homelessness are also being placed in hotels. Many of them have been in hotels for years now, and so we often have conversations with advocates, of those communities, and they understand. They understand that we're in an unprecedented crisis, and we want to care after everyone who is going through difficult moments the same. But again, this is very unprecedented. We're having to lease out these mega hotels that have been vacant because those are really our best option at this point. But again, we want to treat everyone the same and make no exceptions.
Has there been any thought to sending some of these people to other states?
Well, we don't want to replicate what Governor Abbott is doing, and of course, at the end of the day, it's up to the asylum seekers. We are not going to force anyone to go where they don't want to go. But with the absence of work permits, they're completely dependent on localities, and they're coming to localities that are welcoming, and that
sanctuary cities.
Sanctuary cities, and again, the level of support is not balanced out in the country, and this is what's creating some of this situation. If they know that going to D.C. they won't get the same support, so they're coming up to New York City. This is why the federal government plays a really big role here, and we want them and expect them to step in.
The other day the mayor said, I think with some frustration, that people think everything's okay because the city's dealing with it. But he said people don't understand how bad the situation is for the city, and that it's going to end up affecting all city services. Do you agree with that?
Well, yes, Mayor Adams and Deputy Mayor Ann Williams-Isom, they deserve a lot of credit because this is a growing crisis, and I think we've done exceptionally well. We haven't seen children sleeping in the street like you see in a lot of other places. Our teams are functioning at a very high level, and most New Yorkers don't get to see this, the level of response and commitment that is going into this. And unfortunately, people don't see this as a crisis because it's being managed really well.
But it is a crisis.
But it is a crisis, and it is a crisis because we're doing everything possible as we run out of space, and we don't know if this is something we can sustain for much longer without the support of the federal government. I
mean, some of the things the mayor has considered, I know you said earlier that you looked at 500 different locations, but he's also, I know I've seen the confidential memos, and basically what they say is, we may have to put people in tents in parks. We might have to build tiny houses. We might have to use shipping containers. We might have to close streets to put them in. Are those all things that you might be forced to do if you don't get any help?
So, we are often told that we have no plan. Well, we do have a lot of plans, and we've looked at a lot of spaces. We have to plan this out. I mean, we don't know how long this will continue to happen. And so every space that's available needs to be an option. And there's some that are, last resort options. And, we used school gyms as overflow spaces, as last resort options, because just last week we received over 4,000 asylum seekers. We needed to figure that out. But the bottom line is that the fate of the asylum seekers is on the hands of the federal government. As long as they do not provide work permits, as long as they don't step in and manage the situation at the border, this will continue to happen. And so we're doing everything possible to plan it out and to make sure we have the services and the space that we need to support asylum seekers.
So is the answer, which is what many in the Republican Party are calling for, to close the border?
Well, in fact, after Title 42 was lifted, less people are crossing over. And everyone wants to come here legally. And those who are being allowed, they're actually given paperwork to be here legally. So
but it takes a year.
It takes a year and possibly longer for them to actually, you know, figure out their situation. But I think this is a crisis that some people want to make worse because it benefits them politically. And we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of people in the Republican, you know, Party take advantage of the situation. And again, the longer it takes the federal government to step in and do more, they'll continue to take advantage of the situation.
So the answer is not to close the border.
Well, the border is actually quite difficult to cross, you know, and those people who are literally turning themselves in, they're not evading. They want to do this right, and you know, this is an ongoing debate that's decades, you know, and people benefit from it politically. So there's really little incentive for them to actually fix the problem. And the fact is that a lot of people are coming here not because they want to. It really takes a lot for people to pick up and go and bring
and cross several countries.
Cross several countries, and many people have lost their lives as a result. It's very terrifying to do this. It's not an easy choice. And in fact, you know, I think believe once people have the ability to work and send money home, it'll prevent people from having to take this journey. We've seen other
because they can support the people back home.
Exactly. And so, you know, a lot of people who are still there, they might come over if they don't get the support from those relatives that are already here. And so we believe that the right thing to do is give them the right to work. And you see this amongst the Mexican community. They sent $7 million an hour back to Mexico. That has prevented a lot of people from having to come to the United States. Because you know they can you know sustain themselves with that money.
So you're saying that work papers make economic sense for this country as well?
It makes economic sense, and if we truly want to help people in the region, this is the best way to do so.
So I want to end with this question. So you told me that you actually became a citizen in 2019. After coming here at the age of 5. I wonder how that felt to you when you raised your hand and you took the oath and you became an American citizen.
Look, for immigrants, you know, this is, especially when you've had to go through so much, this is just a dream, you know? It is quite surreal, especially for dreamers, because all we know is this country. And for too long we were told we're not from here, but to us it just does not make sense because this is all we've known. And to be frank, for everyone who's had to live through this and go through this, it just gives us the energy to continue to do more for the people that come before us or those who remain in limbo. And so what I said this over and over whenever I speak. The best way we honor the legacy of those who brought us here, our parents, and those who fought for our rights, is to continue this fight for everyone. And that's exactly what I'm doing with my work with immigrant communities here.
So your dream for the new wave of dreamers is for them to be able to go to a citizenship ceremony and say, I'm an American citizen.
Absolutely. In fact, last year we hosted a citizenship ceremony with the mayor, and it was beautiful. You know, dreamers and even military personnel became citizens, and the mayor said this is the only country in the world, the only city in the world where you get to keep your immigrant heritage. The only place where you can become a Mexican American, a Dominican American, you know, and it was just a beautiful moment to be able to do this with the mayor. And absolutely, we believe that many of the children and families arriving now will thrive and contribute 10 times as much to our city.
Commissioner, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you at home for joining me as well.